WSOU 89.5 FM, your home for the loudest rock. I am DJ Ben, and today I am joined by none other than the legendary Jordan Ruta of Dream Theater. Jordan, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, Ben. Nice to be with you.
Thank you. Nice to have you here. So you guys have a new album coming out, A View from the Top of the World, October 22nd, and I am looking forward to it. How was the whole recording process for this album, considering everything that's been going on in the world? I know a lot of bands have been sitting on stuff for a while. Was this something you guys were sitting on, or was this something you guys came up with during the past year?
No, I mean, we got into the studio before we would have, because we were going to be, doing a lot of touring and taking a break. But of course, we never finished our world tour, the last round. I think we were in Europe, and then we had to come home, and then the rest of it was kind of like, postponed. So we basically decided to go in and, just to start recording. I mean, we're all here, and it was like, okay, well, let's switch the schedule around, get in there, make a new album, and create some new material. And that's what we did, man. It was intense. It was like really challenging to coordinate and get into the studio because, everybody was kind of feeling differently about the COVID thing and the rules, and what would be safe and comfortable and all that kind of stuff. And we had to stay in hotels, and so we kind of figured all that out. And then when we finally got into the studio and we were all together, we were like, okay, let's go. And it's pretty intense.
That's good. Because I know Dream Theater as a whole, it's usually write, record, tour, repeat, and it's to be able to kind of not necessarily get the time off, but you're interrupted during that. That obviously messes with you in terms of your body and all that too, I would assume, and also could mess with you mentally a little bit, and that could enhance some writing material, in my opinion. Sometimes
I mean, it was great. It's such an uncharted kind of like time period, and there's so much to say about it that is not good, obviously. But on the other part of it is that certain things can morph, change, and maybe there's some positivity, or not even maybe there is some positivity on the other side of it. And I think that the Dream Theater record that we're delivering is kind of like has that extra, I don't know, power or energy. I think that I'm pretty sure that the fans around the world will kind of find that. And I do think it comes from just that, the fact that we were almost like, we felt like we were like let out of a cage. Like, okay, well, wow. That was like, the energy was just like flying. So, it's a pretty high powered Dream Theater album, because of the times we're living through.
Yeah. Because I know with the two singles so far, The Alien and Invisible Monster, we've started playing The Alien at our station pretty much right away as soon as we got a hold of it. And it's been doing very well. I get calls in requesting it, which is nice to hear, especially because it's brand new music from Dream Theater. Most people want to hear it. But I mean, and also considering like, in terms of like quote unquote radio friendly, a 9-minute track is usually not necessarily radio friendly, but at least with what we do, it's, with the rock community, if you put out a good 9-minute song, people will listen to it.
You're going to play it, right?
And we're going to play it. And that's exactly what you guys did with
Dream
that.
Theater, right? It's
exactly.
Dream Theater, so sure, 9 minutes.
Yeah, 9 minutes. Yeah, that's about short. That's on the shorter end almost.
Right, that's our radio song. What do you want?
Yeah, exactly. But I did see in the track listing, the closing track is 22 minutes long.
Right.
And that's like I'm starting to get like, in my head start thinking like Octavarium kind of style. Right. Any little hint at that before the album comes out?
Or you haven't heard it yet?
I have not heard it yet. No, I have not heard the full album.
You're in for a real treat. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's all I wanted to know really about that was
yeah, man. It's a big epic song. It's really a song that like develops, and there's like a big theme in it that kind of goes through all these changes, and there's a whole breakdown in the middle section where it gets really mellow. And I'm actually playing on my iPad, like my new app called GeoShred. This very beautiful cello sound, but it's literally being played on my iPad. And that was exciting to do that. But yeah, I mean, that track is an adventure. You're gonna
I'm glad. I'm glad, and I'm definitely looking forward to that. And also, this album was the first one you guys started recording at your new headquarters, the DTHQ.
DTHQ. Got a ring to it, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It's a nice flow to it. I mean, you hear, usually you usually hear a lot of the bigger bands, like, globally, are the ones that have these headquarters, and now you guys have your own too, which is great that you're able to do all this stuff in it. And I think it's only going to help the recording process, if anything. I mean,
it did. I mean, it only made sense for us to get DTHQ because really we had, like gear here, we had gear there, everything was kind of like spread out. And one day we're like, what are we doing? Like, we're renting these studios, we're storing our gear. It's like, let's bring it all together. And, and we've got some great crew, and Maddie, who is our head tech, is also very, very handy. And he went into this space that we have, and he built walls and fixed things and painted and and it became this great space. Actually, him and Jimmy T, our engineer, were the ones who really went crazy in there and made the studio space. And, it was basically a big kind of warehouse environment, and they put up the walls and did everything, that they needed to do to turn it into a nice place for us to record. And, Jimmy T could mix things there, and, just a really, really nice working environment. And it was great to work there because, I mean, when you have your own space, you're not looking at the clock and thinking when you have to get out of there or anything like that. You're kind of doing your thing and comfortably working away. So I would also imagine during, the pandemic and all that too, while you guys are recording this, that does give you a little bit more leeway where you're not necessarily you can easily kind of come in and out one at a time, or if you have to do it that way, depending on the guidelines and all that different kind of stuff. But also because it is your own private space, you have a little bit more leeway than a different studio that you're paying for the space for. Yeah, it's a different vibe. Absolutely. Yeah. And it really reflected in what we did, and it also just the feel of it when we were both together in our live room and also just coming in one by one to do our tracking. Everything felt really different and really productive and cool. What I found is that when we were all together at the HQ and we were working in our live room, it's pretty small. At least the current incarnation of it, until Maddie busts out some walls or whatever. But our room where we're playing and recording and writing and everything is small, but it feels like it's condensed energy, okay, we're going in there, let's make this happen, and then after that whole part of the album project was together, then it's time to for John to do his guitar tracks and me to do my keyboard tracks. And then I moved all my keyboards into the control room. So I like to be there sitting next to the engineer when I'm doing it. So there's not I'm listening to him with headphones and I could be in the room and I could have my keyboards and we're just doing it. And that was awesome because we just set up, it was the whole place was filled with keyboards and, my computers, and we had a great time just making all those sounds that you hear, all the orchestras and choirs and sound effects and mini moogs and, whatever else I threw on to the album.
Nice. That is pretty cool. The fact you just brought it. I kind of hear you on that too. Listening to it through headphones is one thing, but you kind of need to kind of hear at least aerial, to have, this left, right speakers, maybe a central one too, and kind of just, you get a better feel for it that way. And I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, man.
But it's been a heck of a busy year for you in general. I feel you had not only your own solo album out this year, another album with Liquid Tension Experiment, and now with the Dream Theater album on top of it, plus all the 4 Lost Not Forgotten archives that were released as well. Right. And I know that's not necessarily, you got going in and, writing, recording for all that too. But sure. I feel like that was a great way to pretty much lead into the new album where you're able to throw out because they were coming out once a month, and they were up until now, which is now the album's coming out.
Yeah.
And I was able to, and once I saw the most recent one where you guys performed Master of Puppets in Barcelona and had that recorded and released that, I listened to that straight through right away because I'm thinking I would love to know what that sounds like. And just
That's a trip, yeah, right. As a keyboard player, it was a trip playing Master of Puppets. Right.
And just like I loved the way you can hear your keys and just like this generic, like not generic, but like the overall sound and stuff, like especially on the track Orion, which with that building intro and just the long dooming chords kind of overhead, and like hearing that coming from you was very cool.
So it was cool to be able to add a little bit of a keyboard Jordan-y touch to some of the stuff,
Yeah.
And it was also fun to do like almost like second guitar, kind of like like between my hands and stuff. Not the most natural thing to play on a keyboard, but kind of worked out a way to do it.
But yeah, you have your solo album out also, A Chapter in Time, that came out back in March, and I was able to give that a good listen too. And you are now, I know you've been voted, and I agree with it personally, as the best keyboardist of all time. And I think it really does show, because you were classically trained at a very young age, I believe, right? Like I know you were like at a young age also going to like Juilliard kind of.
Yeah, so basically I started playing when I was 7, and then when I was 9, I went to the Juilliard pre-college division, which is a division for all the students who are younger than college age who want to get a Juilliard education. Very hard to get into. You got to go through some pretty rigorous auditions, and the people that end up going to Juilliard in the pre-college are very, very talented. And a lot of them go on to the college level as well. And when you do go on to the college level, you have to re-audition. It's just because you were at Juilliard for, in my case, for 9 years, they don't care. Audition again and see if you can get into the college, which I did. And I got into the college and I stayed there for almost a year. But then I was already getting into like progressive rock and synthesizers and mind-altering substances. And I was kind of like, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. I got to go kind of like find my way in a new path and bring it all together. And so, so I did. And it was hard because I was told at Juilliard basically not to talk to anybody who was like not a classical musician. They're not up to your standard. So I had to kind of like get rid of that hypnosis almost that was in my head and figure out how to take who I was, this kind of like classical pianist, but also now playing synthesizers and interested in playing rock and find my way in the real world, which was not easy. So, but eventually I had a slow but steady kind of like career path that's led me to this point. So I can't really complain. But getting back to the Chapter in Time. So that album wasn't even intended at first to be an album. It was intended to be like a musical diary for me. I was just letting out my feelings musically because it was in the first stage of the lockdown where everybody was like kind of freaking out and we weren't going out and we were having food delivered and it was like, nuts. And so for me, I mean, I've always been somebody who uses music as kind of like an emotional outlet. Like it wouldn't be uncommon for me, like when I was growing up, to be like going through whatever changes, like in the family dynamic and having a strong feeling and escape to the piano room to just play and just kind of let out those feelings. That's who I am, basically. So in this case, I had the same kind of almost like a gut reaction. Like, I just got to go play some music, like, and just like calm myself down or like tune up myself with music. And so I did that. Like I did that a lot of the days when we were in that lockdown. I would go in and I'd play. And after a while of doing that, I was kind of like, you know what? I've got a nice collection of music here. It's very personal. It's very kind of like thoughtful, serene, gentle, maybe even a little sad or whatever. But I thought, let me put this out. And then of course, I had to go back and pick which songs I wanted to have. And anyway, to cut the story a little shorter, I ended up finding the name or just coming up with the name, A Chapter in Time. And I thought, wow, it's a perfect name. It doesn't sound like too weird, but it's also not been used. And it describes what this is. So, Yeah, so that's, and I'm so pleased that I put it out, because I feel like, whenever I can create music that kind of like, I don't know, like tunes me up or like settles me in a nice musical way, and I can share it, that's awesome. Because that's like one of the main reasons I make music, is to get that kind of like calm. I mean, yeah, I do metal and all that stuff and I like it, but maybe the main thing that I like to do with music is almost like a self-tuning thing. So if I can offer that to other people, wow, how beautiful.
Yeah, and I agree with that, especially with the way that album sounds. Like it is just a nice. You can hear the emotion in the album, which is always good. And it is for anybody who hasn't checked that out, I would definitely recommend it. Even if you are the normal metalhead like myself, it is not. It is something that you can just kind of sit down, put on, and kind of go,
Yeah,
okay,
everybody
and
needs to
just
chill.
take it in.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
after you've digested 3 Meshuggah albums and an Iron Maiden album, then put on A Chapter in Time and chill the fuck out. Stop
Exactly.
headbanging for just a few minutes and just calm down. Yeah.
That is very true, though.
Right.
And another thing, your start to Dream Theater came in after LTE first got put together, and you were recruited into Dream Theater after that. And your first album with Dream Theater is probably one of my favorite albums of all time, if not like personally my favorite album of all time, which is why I'm so happy talking to you right now.
Oh,
And with Metropolis Part 2, I mean, that's just one of those. It's operatic, and it's just it literally is a scene from like you are the way that album is just constructed. It's a play. It's not even. I wouldn't. I'm at a loss for words of trying to describe it. It paints such a vivid image while you're listening to it, and not just vocally, but just even musically. With the first main full track is a straight up instrumental, and you can kind of you pick up the vibe that's going on with it, and
well, that's awesome to hear that you love it.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Yeah. And of course, one of the interesting things I'll point out, based on, kind of what you just said, we had just come off the road from touring when the COVID thing happened, but we were playing all of Scenes from a Memory. And one of the things that happened is that it kind of left us with this, we really got in touch with that again, understanding what like kind of made it tick, like what was the magic of this, like, so when we went in to do the new album, one of the things we were thinking about is how can we like capture a little bit of whatever the magic was there. Like, first of all, like, what was it? Let's just understand a little bit about what did we put out there and how did it work, and musically, emotionally. And so I feel like we were able to tap in a little bit to that, everything from kind of like almost like obvious things, like on my keyboard, like I still have, obviously I have all the sounds and everything from that, that period in that album. And sometimes when we were writing the new stuff, I was like, you know what, I can use this sound, and it's very much like a scene sound, and it just worked. And I was like, wow, okay, capturing a little bit of that spirit here, we're kind of going for it. So I think that's a part of the album that almost makes it, I don't know, just more rich or enjoyable, I think. And I think a lot of people will feel that.
Well, that makes me. I was already looking forward to this album well before even this interview even was scheduled, I feel like. But hearing that directly from you, that just means I am now very extremely happy for this album coming out October 22nd. And that is all I got for you today, actually, unfortunately. But unless there's anything, absolutely. I was going to ask you.
Let me just add a couple of things. So, like, one of the things that I did during the whole lockdown in this last 2 years now is I started a Patreon. And the reason I started it is because, sitting at home, not touring, I wanted to share. I really am a kind of a active person on social media. I enjoy creating content. So what I did is I started this thing called Patreon. Patreon is a for those who don't know, is a platform that allows for fans to kind of engage with an with an artist, or Patreon really is open to anybody, like radio announcers,
Mhm.
actors, musicians. But for me, it allowed me to create an inner circle, which meant that I could do all my like streams, my live streams where I'll like improvise, or I'll, play through songs, or all my educational materials, all my chats. I've been like doing these kind of like interviews, like with Mike Portnoy and Rick Wakeman and Tony Levin and Marco Miniman. And all of that gets kind of geared towards this inner circle of mine. And it's become a whole thing. Like I have my whole studio here now equipped with cameras and lights all kind of around my beautiful Steinway piano. And it's been a joy because it's allowed me to be the social kind of like active person that I can be without having to, just put it out there and not getting anything in return. So it's been an awesome way for me to kind of do what I do, educate, play, entertain, and bring people in that have the opportunity to then give back something, which I think is really an important message for the, community, like of music lovers, that, hey, you have an artist, forget about me for a second, but you have an artist that you really love, and, think about supporting them on some level, something that would need, like give back a little bit, because, music has been this kind of thing where people just think, oh, I'll just, I'll get it for free. And, I'm just sitting here enjoying the music. They forget about the fact that, you've got these musicians out there that are trying to survive on the planet, make a living. So it's important. And something like Patreon, it's not the only avenue that, there's Twitch and Patreon and all these things that musicians are learning about that allow them to put out their music and their energy, and then fans can be involved and give back and help them survive.
Yeah, I know Patreon's been huge with basically since the pandemic really shut everything down. A lot of artists have been going on there. I'm glad to hear that you're on there too. Yeah. And definitely for anybody watching this, definitely go check out Jordan Rudis's Patreon, because I'm sure even just hearing some of the stuff that you just said that you have on there, I am definitely going to be looking into that very soon too. I definitely will.
Awesome. And the other thing I'll just very quickly
go
is say that one of the things Patreon allows for me is that, like as an artist and somebody who people know around the world, I get messages from everywhere. Like, I'll get it on Instagram, I'll get it on YouTube, I'll get it on Twitter. People just trying to reach me. The best way to reach me, if you really want to reach me, is sign up for my Patreon. It costs like a price of a cup of coffee, a month, and then you can text me and I will text you back. And, and that creates a clear path for communication. So I don't have to be like here, everywhere. I have my patrons, and if you really want to be part of my world, that's easier. It's clearer for me. It makes sense.
Awesome. Well, I will definitely take you up on that. That is for sure. So is there anything else you want to add, or anything else?
Excited about the Dream Theater album coming out.
Yes.
It's coming out on the 22nd. It's like, I think it's one of our very, very best. Looking forward to having the reaction from all around the world. And, we've been sitting on this, waiting for people to hear it. And finally it's coming out. So we're super jazzed about it, if you will, or should I say progged about it. And can't wait. It's going to be really, really awesome.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me this morning. And, obviously can't wait for the new album. October 22nd, A View from the Top of the World by Dream Theater will be out. And, Jordan, thank you so much.
Thank you, my friend. Good to see you. Thanks for your time and support. Appreciate it. And enjoy the new album. Let me know what you think.